Super Senpai Podcast.
Welcome to the Super Senpai Podcast. This is a bi-weekly, episodic, tokusatsu-related podcast where we're talking about fights and tights. I'm Pat.
And I'm Grant, and tonight we have a very special episode. We're not actually talking about a specific show tonight. We have a special guest on to talk with us about a particular topic. So please welcome to the show the founder of TokuNet, Paula Gaetos. Paula?
Hello.
Welcome.
Hey.
We did it.
We did it.
The real enemy is not moon witches, folks. It's technical issues.
Yeah, technical issues and adult scheduling.
Yeah.
But tonight we're talking about a very special topic, just sort of broadly. Not only we're going to kind of discuss some of Paula's background, because hers is unique compared to most, but I mean, you've got a few marks in there that few other people have. We'll put it that way. But we're also going to be talking about how to bring new people into the fandom. So that's a big topic. But Paula, tell us a little bit about your history with fights and tights.
I keep forgetting that that's the thing, and it catches me off guard every single time.
Oh, that was just the thing this week. We have a couple.
Oh, is it?
rotate.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it will catch me off guard every time. But in my case, it's kind of, I don't know how different it might be, but I am a foreign-born American, meaning I was born in another country and moved here when I was very young. So I was born in the Philippines, and so I grew up there watching classic tokusatsu has been, I'm assuming just by proximity, something that's been really, really popular in Asia and Southeast Asia, in particular places like Philippines and Indonesia and Malaysia and things like that. And so I grew up watching Bioman when that came out in the mid 80s. Nice. And so I have very distinct memories of being shocked and bawling as a little kid when Yellow died. And it was just like, no, that doesn't happen. What is this? So it was a very distinct memory for me. And what was kind of interesting was as I got older, when I moved to the US, I realized that Bioman was quasi-dubbed in English, like kind of Taglish, by Filipino actors. And it wasn't until later when I realized, like, oh, huh. Why does Bioman sound like my aunts and my uncles right now? So I moved to the US when I was like first and second grade. I was like 6-7 years old, and I basically came at the time when Power Rangers came up, and so Power Rangers was my jam, original Mighty Morphin, and so I watched that religiously until Power Rangers in Space, and then kind of like grew out of it a while. Like I guess most folks grow up for just a little bit and realize it's silly to do so. And then around college, around 2009, 2010, I found the fan subs for Deca Ranger. And that's basically where I can kind of consider myself like the true start of falling into the fandom proper. Because I've never joined forums before then. I've never been a real big participant in other fandoms. Maybe like... Yeah, no, not even Arashi. I got into Arashi after I got into Tokusatsu. So it's one of those things where like getting into Deca Ranger and getting into Tokusatsu was my big real foray into being an active participant in a fandom community online. So I found forums for the first time, and I joined one in particular, and then that's when I got to meet the future friends and colleagues that I have today, and got into podcasting because of that forum. And then I would go on, because of those friends and colleagues that I made, that's when we all banded together and started talking about how, oh, I wish we had like one website that really focused on official news and not rumor mongering. Oh, I wish we could make our own podcast with just us hanging out. Oh, I wish we had a YouTube channel. Oh, I wish we did this. And then it was one of those things where I just wanted to give my friends a place that they could all hang out. And then I woke up drunk one morning and realized I bought a website and called it the Tokusatsu Network. And that's how that got started.
Wake up having done.
Yeah, I woke up and I'm all like, why does my head hurt so much? Why is there an empty bottle of soju next to me? Like, what is happening? And I look up going, oh, I made this for my friends. Like, I wanted to give my friends a space. I made this for us. I made it for them. And so that's how TokuNet got started, because everyone just had a wish list. And I'm like, screw it. I bought a website. I have a business plan drafted. I have our introduction drafted. And I apparently did a lot in my drunken stupor and created the base of what then would become the Tokusatsu Network. And I headed that for 4 years, since 2014, and I'm really, really happy that it's everybody's resource for official tokusatsu news and entertainment since then. And it grew from a group of 7 people who just wanted a space for themselves and wanted to create something that was accessible and really made it clear that we cover official news and we have folks in Japan. And it started from 7, and now I believe there's about 20 folks on the staff now, just contributors and podcast hosts. And then I recently stepped down this year. Basically, I spent 4 years there and graduated to focus on my library career, which is kind of helps out with kind of integrating what I wanted TokuNet to be. That libraries has been something that's been near and dear to my heart, just personally and career-wise, that TokuNet was something I wanted so that people had a reliable resource. And I'm really happy that it's growing and it's continuing, and the new editor-in-chief, Nicole, has done an amazing job, and I'm as excited to see tweets from TokuNet now, just as a reader. Seeing what she's done, and I'm completely amazed at everything that she's done. So
it's got to be a pretty special feeling.
Yeah, it's really special. It's really seeing something that, like, you started one night and you woke up hungover after, and then to see it like growing the way it is 4 years later, is almost 5 years now, is incredible. So that's kind of, I think, my biggest of my young adult life. That's probably one of my biggest accomplishments. I'm all like, yeah. That I'm so happy that's there, and I'm happy that it's continuing to go on without me as well, and I can just enjoy it and support it the way everybody else can.
Sounds like you can retire.
Yeah.
You're enjoying your retirement.
I am, at least
the
for
old guard can be the new guard.
Yeah, and
awesome.
And yeah, and I've it's one of those things where, like, I was really, really lucky to find Nicole, because, you know, I think as I believe another editor-in-chief that I've grown to. I follow on Twitter, mentioned that, like, you know, when it's my time to go, I want to hand it over to someone who loves this community as much as I do, and grow it much more than it started off as. So it allowed far more openings than I could even thought of, both personal wise and career wise as well. So, but yeah, that's how I got into Toku, and that's how I remain for the most part into Toku.
Got in like everybody else, and then founded the most important Toku website on the net. You know, I mean, just
standard, run of the mill,
A to B to. I mean, we hear this every time. I wish you brought something new to the table for this. Gosh. I mean, really.
I know. I'm very boring. It's very boring.
Yeah.
It's fine. You know what? I just got started. I'm just trying my best, man. It's just so.
Set up a foundational pillar in the community, and I've seen my work outgrow me so that I don't even have to manage it anymore. But, you know, how are you guys on this Wednesday evening?
I will say that we have something similar in that we're both not originally born in the U.S., and we both sort of experienced Toku out of it, and then we're confused a little bit by it coming here, because my experience is that I was born in Okinawa, Japan, And I had seen Dairanger, but didn't realize that Dairanger or, Super Sentai and Power Rangers were separate.
Yeah.
So even though I had the Megazord toy that we got there when we brought it here, it was the Dairanger crew in the center of the chest, not the Mighty Morphin, and I was very confused when I brought it over to a friend's place. Eventually, found the fan subs. Kamen Rider was my route back in, but...
Which Kamen Rider?
Kabuto.
Oh.
Oh, right. I was like,
Yeah.
this is what it's going to be like. And then the next one I watched was Den. I was like, this is very different.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love all of it.
Do you find that you gravitate one type? Because it's kind of interesting when people talk about all these various series like Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, as if they're monolith thing, but their themes are so different, and one can drastically change from another depending on the year.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's probably one of the most difficult parts of when you think about contributing and talking about tokusatsu to people who have no concept of what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely am drawn more towards Kamen Rider for whatever reason. Like I don't know if it's just the belts, the getting the powers from the enemy, and then seeing it represented in other forms of it, like in either reference or tribute. I'm like, that's a Kamen Rider thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's definitely a feeling I've had for a long time before I rediscovered it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally.
but I mean, I love Toku overall, and anybody that's into it is awesome. It's awesome. Like. It's not. I'm not trying to be snooty about it.
Oh, here we go again. Kamen Riders for adults, Sentai for kids.
It's all for kids. My God, it's all about Garo.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And then Grant, your route in was through Power Rangers as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I came up on. I am that first generation. I was but a wee young lad, and I saw that first commercial for Mighty Morphin coming out. I was hooked because I was like, robots, dinosaurs, kicking, and I mean, here we are. So
it's 2018. Get those high kicks.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like I at some point became aware that there was more. I grew up around military bases, so you always had somebody whose older brother or whatever had tapes of something from other countries, and so like I saw a lot of stuff secondhand. And so I became aware at some point, like, okay, no, there's like other shows like this. And, kids would come to the playground and say stuff like, well, there's an Orange Ranger. And you'd be like, it was this pre-internet days. So you'd be like, I don't know if they're lying or not. I don't know. Like, they just say things. So, I knew it was out there. And in college, I watched a couple episodes, but I never really, I hated using BitTorrent and all that stuff. It's just kind of like, I didn't always have the best connection. I was poor. But then in the past couple years, realizing it's all kind of come back because I was like, oh wait, you can just like, Ultraman was just on Hulu, just like 66 Ultraman just sitting right there. You can just stream it. And I was like, whoa, what? So like, gonna jump in and here we are. I'm watching it all now. I mean, I have basically in the past like I've basically only really been like I guess a modern Toku fan, quote unquote.
I hate that.
Well, but you know what I mean.
No. I mean, but I mean, like the way people have to classify themselves as like where they fall.
Sure. I'm just
that kind of bothers me just a little bit.
No, I mean, like in terms of like how long I've been for a guy who's doing a Toku podcast, I really haven't been watching like full shows.
Which is 100% okay.
Right.
I think that's sorry, I didn't mean to like totally jump in there.
Sure. No, and that's something we're going to talk about too,
yeah.
like credentials, quote unquote, and all that.
Yeah,
but just
I hate
like,
that.
I guess it's a positive message because like I've really only been watching stuff for about 3 years, like really, but the passion's there and the access is finally there, and I think we're starting to see the floodgates kind of open up. Like you see,
it's cracking.
We're getting there. We're really getting there. So. But still, I'm Power Rangers and Sentai in my heart. I can't change that. That's part of who I am.
Definitely.
No one should be asking you to.
So, I guess we'll start at a low point here, but maybe share some experiences where we failed to get other people into Toku, like what we were trying to do, and then who it was, and maybe if we have any kind of perception of why it didn't work, and just to demonstrate here. When I was really getting into it was about 2000, I want to say like summer of 2008. So after my first year of college, I took Kabuto home and I was watching it with my dad, and then I brought it back to school because I was like, hey, I'm really into this now. This is like my thing, guys. I'm like the Toku guy or whatever. And I would try to get roommates and other people into it. I was watching it in the living room. Like I was just really, really trying hard. It's like
Oops,
movie
I
night.
was just
I know what we're
watching
gonna
this.
do. Yeah. Hey, you
I'm
want to
so
just
sorry.
sit down? Yeah.
It's like when I try to flirt with like the cute guy in like the comic book store. It's like, oh, I'm just picking up this Power Ranger. What? It's just here.
Basically, yes. Yes, I was attempting to romance people.
Romancing through Toku is a totally different podcast.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
Listen, I'm launching a new website.
It's speed dating, but with Toku.
Oh man.
Oh God. Oh jeez. All right.
And she found her husband.
See what you have
Sorry.
in common.
I'm gonna write that down. That's not bad. We'll talk about that after this one. But yeah, I was trying real hard, and I had friends that were kind of tangentially interested. One friend actually went and like watched all of Kabuto, and I was like, "Oh, cool. What'd you think?" She was like, "Oh, really liked it." She got into the characters and stuff, but then it turned out she was really in it just for Kabuto's actor. So
I mean, respect.
I was like, you know what? You're right. Hero's a dreamboat, and I get it. And he quit acting, and everybody's heart's broken. Fine, see how it is.
Oh, he came back. He was in that one
he did?
HBO show. Yeah.
Whoa.
He made a
Okay,
guest star in HBO's Girls. It wasn't the show itself was okay, but
Interesting.
but
Good,
yeah,
I have to look into that,
it was kind of a ripple in the J drama Hiro Misushima fan clubs. Like, he's an
Fandom,
HBO show.
Fandom ripples.
My goodness.
There are few forces more powerful.
But yeah, like a lot of the time, I mean, most of the time it didn't take. Anyone who was kind of vaguely interested didn't really keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of, at that point in time, kind of just like, all right, well, this is just the thing I'm going to enjoy, and I'm just going to marathon the heck out of everything. But yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's pretty similar to what my biggest quote-unquote failure, I guess. I wouldn't even consider it much of a failure, but my best friend Tim is a super anime fan. It's his jam. He loves gaming. He loves anime. And so it's one of those things where like he knew I was super into tokusatsu, and the nature of our friendship is that I could put on whatever the hell on and he doesn't care. Same on my end. And he's the type of best friend like you could literally just sit in the same room and not talk to each other and have like the best conversation. If that makes sense. Like you guys have the best time.
Yeah.
Just being in your own space. That's the kind of friend he is. And so I figured like as much as like nothing, if I would put on Super Sentai or a Kamen Rider, he's kind of like there wasn't much reaction to him. And so I figured, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to introduce him to something, Garo had just came out, and I was 2005 Garo Kick. I think that's correct. It was 2005. And so I was watching it, and he was like, "Whoa, my god, naked lady!" I'm like, "Yeah, it's actually really, it's really cool." Just letting you know, it's kind of horrifying, but it's very cool. And Garo, the way Garo was being pitched, one, it was Keita Amamiya, great monsters, great design. It's very adult. And at the time, it was a lot of, Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and Ultraman, they're for, quote, kids. Like,
right.
It's something to kind of get around, which is silly to have to caveat to my best friend who, he and I watched shonen anime ridiculously. And so it was kind of like really interesting to like why was I at the time so concerned that he would find something so kiddish when the anime that we watch are also geared for children.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting the way I was thinking about it. So I mean, I tried to get him into Garo. He was interested because there was naked ladies in the beginning. And how kind of the graphics at the time were really just quite good still. And how intense it was and how dark it was literally and figuratively. But after a while, he just wasn't sticking. And I did find that mostly whenever people do see that I talk about Power Rangers, I talk about tokusatsu, you tend to notice the eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
Which is a daunting experience for anybody who is passionate about X, Y, and Z. anything. And so, you know, one of the things that I think that mostly it didn't click was namely just because as much as I can tailor things to someone, you really have to, at the end of the day, and I learned this too, even professional wise, because as a librarian, part of your job is to recommend things to people. They're going every series, every book, it's reader. So they're going to find it regardless. The best thing that you can just do, and this is probably something I'm going to repeat throughout this episode, the best thing you could do is just hand it to them.
Yeah.
And
right.
let it go. Like, you have to leave it up to their hands. And if there's something that's why when that girl who watched all of Kabuto, but only watched it for Hiro Mishima, not really so much the tokusatsu aspect of it, I honestly wouldn't even consider that a failure. She watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's great. Tim didn't even watch any of Garo unless I was watching it. And after all, and at the same time, like, I was watching repeated episodes I've seen already, so I wasn't as enthusiastic about it either. So
yeah, well, I think you're right there. It's just that in the moment, I was getting into Agito, and I was like, "Hey, you want to just sit in on this?" It's like, "No, I'm good. I did my thing," and that I think in the moment it was a little bit of a sore spot.
Yeah.
So that's thinking, okay.
Anybody, I think, especially for, not to speak for the both of you, but for anybody who's into anything that's quote obscure or quote different. And growing up at the time frame that we grew up, I think it's a lot better now, just a little bit better now, because literally there's niche is the game now when it comes to media entertainment. Period. It wasn't like that before, and so all of us are kind of used to, and all of us have stories about the time when it doesn't click, and when you realize that it doesn't click, and you realize how different you are, and that little piece of memory is kind of like what you hold on to. It's like it's a little heartbreaking to put it that way, but I think the fact that now it's a little better, it's nice to be able to kind of turn around and see it from that perspective.
Sure, yeah. From my own experience, in terms of failures, I mean, literally every 2 weeks when I sit down on Blade Licking Thieves and try to convince my real life friends, every 2 weeks I'm like, so I'm watching this Toku, and you need to watch this Toku, and I have gotten one of my co-hosts, he tried to watch one episode of Ultraman Orb, and he got about 3 minutes in and quit. And I was like, well, it's a knife in the gut.
Graham, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And of course, when I tell people, you know, hot takes like, hey, actually the majority of Power Rangers is either okay or maybe even great, you're just only thinking about Mighty Morphin, people don't want to hear that, you know. And it's one of those things, I think anime is still somewhat in the space. Like, Paul, like you said, a lot of nerd culture is out in the open now. You know, geek is yesterday's news. I mean, you know, superhero movies make billions of dollars. Like, it's not even like, you know, so, and like you said, trying to get, I think it has a little bit of that allure, like you said, because it's like a niche interest. Like, it's kind of, it's something that's different, and you can be like, well, I'm into this weird side thing that you're not into. But it also has that sort of, you know, humans and nerds particularly are very tribalistic. Like, we like our little pockets.
No, of course, no, we're not.
We always like to have groups that
I think they call them podcasts.
Yeah. We always like to have groups that are beneath us. And I think there's also, so like we like to put down on like, ugh, I don't watch Toku, ugh, I don't watch wrestling, ugh, I don't watch anime. Like these, you just pick a subgenre and block it out. But I think part of it is also a defense mechanism, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Just the fact that, I mean, you want to talk about, let's just talk like television, music, film, whatever. We kind of live in a content creation golden age, and just in terms of like, there is so much good content out there. Like, just in the sense of like, there
it's
is
overwhelming.
And the access to it is easier than ever. So we're at this double point where like, not only is there a lot of really like top quality stuff out there, but it's just, you don't even have to try to find it. Like, not forget piracy even. Like, the legal channels, the hurdles are so minimal. It's like, I have to log into this. Some sites you don't have to log into. You can just click the videos, like at Shout Factory and stuff. So I think there's a sort of defense mechanism in that, like literally there is more than 24 hours of good content produced every day. Like,
Yep.
you could never sleep. You could spend all your time consuming and you still wouldn't catch up. You just couldn't do it.
Mm.
So, I know of people and have heard secondhand of people who will do things like they'll watch anime or whatever at like double speed. Like, they'll watch at 2 times speed, or they'll jump forward a couple seconds every now and then, just because they don't want to, like, they want to consume as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
I'm gonna validate that by one sort of recent mutual on Twitter. It was the girl who did that. She was in that picture, the Hero Academia sort of cosplay shot that we did.
oh yeah.
At AX. She routinely goes and watches all of One Piece, and I just told her she's insane. But I respect her. You're crazy, but
That's impressive. I mean, that's
I'm
really
impressed.
impressive.
I'm blown away. I will never do that. I'm
I
sorry.
literally
Yeah, same.
I was gonna say I started reading the manga because I knew I would never be able to complete the anime even once.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's impressive. But so, like, we
Yeah.
live in an era where there is just so much, and it's not just so much like noise, like even just like pure signal, pure goodness. There's more than you could ever consume. So I think we sort of defensively block it. Like, you think about, like, oh, hey, you want to get into Toku, and what someone hears is you want to get into this
You need some
whole
filter.
other thing. you want to try out this whole other thing, and they're mentally they're just like, no. So they come up with
Yeah.
any excuse, and to some
Yeah.
degree I don't blame them. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I do the same thing. I'm just like, I can't, like, my mind share, like, there's, to use a corporate buzzword speak, like, there's just not enough, like, cubby holes in there anymore. I can't add this whole column for
There's not
karate
enough
bugmen.
rooms in my there's not enough room enough in my mind mansion that's
Yeah.
like not I mean, it's a mansion, it's pretty big, has a lot of really good stuff in it, but there's only so much room I can fit in there. And
You should visit my mind mansion.
Oh,
Excellent, Dr. Orpheus.
Thank you. My blue windbreaker.
I had Taco Bell for lunch.
God, I love that
This
show
is-
so much.
oh god. And I have no idea what
Pat.
you're talking about.
We're talking about Venture Brothers. Pat, are we the 21 and 24 of fandom? We might be.
I don't know what that means.
I'm gonna need to do some fan art later.
Paula, to get you into another thing, Venture Bros is really, really
You're
good.
not seriously. You're not the
amazing.
first person to tell me that.
It's
and
so good.
It's that in particular, that idea that there are some people who are just like, you know what? No, I need to pace myself. I've been reflecting on this, especially in the past year, just since I've stepped down from Toku, because in the past 4 years, and I was running TokuNet, it became my life.
Yeah.
And understandably so. I basically, got drunk and started a startup without realizing that I did it. And I gave myself a part-time job for 4 years, not realizing that I did it. And it's one of those things, like, I was definitely in danger of burnout, and it's very easy to do so. Especially if you do become your own content creator, for the most part. But it's one of those things where it was really difficult to admit to myself after a while that something that really engulfed my entire life for 4 years was actually just a small part of who I was and what I was into. Tokusatsu is something that I was very tangentially into, and I made some of my best friends because of it. But it was in my life 24/7, and it can be really difficult to parse through all of that. And I put a lot of pressure in myself and kicked myself way too hard for not knowing details, for not knowing, like, the history of the Kamen Rider and Super Sentai off the top of my head, like some of my friends and my colleagues have, who basically have the brain capacity to do so because it was more their jam than mine. This one specific niche thing. And I know the phrase casual fan is thrown around like a dirty word. And that's why I kind of, like, really hate that hierarchical feeling. When you got into Toku, how interested you're into Toku, just because you don't know X, Y, and Z
Right.
fact about Toku. And it really was a lot of pressure, especially because I am the founder of that site, and it is a site that I run on a regular basis. It was kind of hard to be able to say to people, it's like, well, why don't you know this fact off the top of your head? You own this website. And I'm all like, the reason why this website works is because I'm paying attention to things like statistics and logistics and making sure the site is running and budgeting.
And that's the classic nerd. test, right? Your random trivial knowledge. That's how you judge the strength of someone's fist. You just go, well, do you know factoid? And if you don't, then your kung fu is weak. Like, that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And I know. Sadly, I get that double filter because I'm suddenly a woman on the internet with opinions. And so, just because I'm wearing like a Go Ranger t-shirt, it's like, oh, do you know what year off the top of my head Go Ranger was? And I'm all like,
you're not a real Go Rangers fan unless you can name their top 5 songs.
Exactly. And I'm like just sitting there going, I'm sorry, you're a commenter and my name's in the credits. So I don't, not to pounce on like, you know what? If they're commenting like that, they weren't a TokuNet fan in the first place. That's kind of like the thing that, so it's really, I've been reflecting a lot about this, especially this past year, since I've kind of like stepped down and taking a break and taking a breather for myself, is just, and getting into other things that are not Toku and how that is kind of rejuvenating my love for Tokusatsu in the first place. Like,
well, Adventure Brothers to your cue, because it's good stuff. But
and it's basically the idea of like there's literally so much stuff in the world that the way that we start recommending things to folks, or the things that have worked the best for me, is to be able to just go, when people are like, I have no idea what that is, that's your in. I kind of just wait until people tell me that they're interested in X, Y, and Z. So I guess, I don't know if you don't mind me moving on to talking about
let's do that.
Experiences that succeeded. One of the things that I know what was really exciting when I did start TokuNet was that because I needed help logistic wise, and when I started TokuNet, it was really hard for me to create any content myself, just because like, oh my god, I have to schedule like staff meetings and branding and all this stuff, and I just couldn't figure it out, and I had to keep track of, you know, the people we bring in and contributors and make sure they were doing okay, that they felt supported and stuff like that. And it was really hard for me to do basic logistical stuff. And so my other best friend, Kitty, who is now currently an amazing Twitch streamer, she was like, you know what, hey, I have some free time. Do you want me to be your executive assistant? Do you want me to help you out, like scheduling stuff? I'm like, okay, sure. And she had never seen a tokusatsu in her life. Like, wow. Didn't know about it until she met me. Didn't even know about it when I was running TokuNet. And it wasn't until she started helping me out with TokuNet that she's like, hey, she's trying to get into the general staff conversations, and people were getting to know her. And she was like, hey, I'm curious. Could we add her to the podcast? Because it would be really, really interesting to have a voice that is completely new, like the perma newbie. To these things, because she was basically in a group of tokusatsu veterans, and it was really nice to see things from her perspective. And so because of her friendship with me and her just being the gregarious, wonderful person that she is, she started watching Zoojer to help us out with the podcast, and she loved it. She loved Zoojer, and then she did not like Ninja. And so she was able to be part of the fandom to a certain degree, just being the permanent newbie, because it was great being able to explain to someone, and because she would come in and ask questions. It's like, okay, wait a minute. So when the way you transform this way, what does that mean? Why is this part funny? Because I want to know why, because you guys are so into it. And so she was really engaged in the fandom discourse just by asking questions, because something that she was curious about. And so she loves Zoojer. She absolutely, she loves Fours. Like, those are her two favorites.
That means that she's a good person, like, automatically. I mean, she already was, but like, loving Fours means you're a good person. That's it. That's all it is.
Anybody who hates Fours, I'm all like, you and my demon friend Derek need to have a conversation. But yeah, no, it was one of the things I've been quite happy. Like, she's not super into the fandom now, just because, you know, she's off doing something else. But I call that a success for her, just because she was really engaged and she's also a binger. And so the fact that she can binge 50 episodes of a series, like 50 episodes is daunting regardless of any series. The fact that she was willing to do that within like just to get to a podcast episode done or whatever is incredible. And so, so I gave her a plushie Leo for her birthday from Zoojer. I gave her so I consider that a big success. That she was like, I mean, how it worked for one best friend, but it definitely worked for the other one. And they're both equally nerdy, and so it's kind of really interesting to see that dynamic between the two of them. And she and I can have right now. I'm like, girl, go watch Build with me. Like, it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then now that it's done, she's like, hey, I'm gonna binge it. So I'm like, yay, cry with me.
Watch the finales together. Like, just make it a thing.
Yeah, and so she's very open to at least what I tell her. Like, not what I tell her, but like, she's my best friend. She's not my executive assistant anymore.
Professional best friend.
Yeah, she's my professional
best
business
friend.
Card.
Professional.
I pay her in hugs and coffee and a safe place in my apartment if she needs to rant.
I loved sort of picturing just now the newbie surrounded by veterans. Yeah, kid, you don't know nothing about the Rider Wars, and then the Superhero Wars, and then the Superhero Wars final, and then the Superhero Wars Generations final,
and then Grand Prix. You completely skip Grand Prix.
I'm sorry, I just killed.
I understand that it was a very traumatic experience.
It's when you slam your fist against the locker and you wouldn't last 3 episodes a decade. And you just storm out in the huff.
That's a perfect segue. So I'm going to go with, I'm a little spoiled here, but my success story was sort of right around the time when we started dating. My then girlfriend was right around when Decade was starting, so I was like, hey, watch the show with me, check this out, I really like this thing.
Is this a spoiler that she became from girlfriend to wife? Is that what this is? Okay.
I mean, basically, yeah.
Got
so,
it.
I mean, but throughout, like, sort of early in our things that we were watching on the regular was like old Simpsons episodes, Futurama, and then like regularly keeping up with Decade, and then Double, and then other Toku things.
That is such an interesting show dynamic.
And it works because it's like, you know, we sort of started off like rattling off Simpsons quotes to each other. Like, one of my first memories is her jamming a spoon into my hand and saying like, "That's not a knife, this is a knife," or something. It was great.
No judgment, but ew. I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, but that's just what happened. And yeah, so I mean, like, we were watching like Cutie Honey the Live, the Sailor Moon live action, and then we kind of fell off. I'm gonna say like post 4s with her. She was like, all right, whatever, do what you want. But now we're like watching Build together, and I want to say this is the best success story because it's like, I mean, it's like, hey, you know, new one's up, all right, let's go. And then like there's actually like a back and forth during the episode, like she's paying attention, and it's like. Yeah, and I definitely have like a Kazumi inner monologue stuff going on, just not in the creepy way. Well,
I mean,
you know, whatever.
It's not creepy because she allows it, but you know, let's be fair.
I guess for my own success stories, I don't really have I have I don't know, 3 or 4. I want to say that there are Twitter mutuals of mine. I won't get into specifics and names there, but I thank the Lord for the Toku Gifts account on Twitter, because not only do I just love seeing it and love retweeting it or making comments about it, but like I'm constantly putting that in my feed, or I'm constantly doing like my reaction threads and stuff. And multiple people have come to me and said, "Hey, I want to start Kamen Rider because I saw your thread. Hey, I want to start Ultraman because I saw your thread. Where should I start?" So, in a way, it feels really special to be like I'm kind of like proselytizing it a little bit. So I don't know these people face to face, but you know, just mutuals that have started, and then they take off and they realize like, wow, this guy hasn't seen as much, but I can spend all of my, you know, I got a mortgage, I got jobs, like I can't watch as much as I'd like, so I have a couple recs, and then those baby birds leave the nest and they just soar, they take off. So I'm just so excited by that, and just seeing it grow, because people, I think that those of us who are, you know, very online, so to speak, are realizing that actually, you know, people are starting to see like, wait, actually Toku is amazing, like it is everything that I want in television. So they grapple on. They're like, how can this 3-second loop have so much in it? And you're like, you don't. Yeah, like
be the coolest
like,
thing in the world.
Or like just I keep like my hope currently is I'll get to watch Amazon Riders, and hopefully that'll be I know my co-hosts want a little bit darker, so maybe I can watch that and then recommend that to them, and then slowly get them over to the bright and the campy and the ridiculous that I really want them to be on.
First of all, the fact that we have Amazon writers in official Amazon Prime Video is ridiculous. Like,
absurd.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
What?
It's a new world. It's a whole new ballgame. It really is. So
it really, yeah. It's one of those things where like you kind of just sit back and go, where do you start by explaining how incredible this is if you've been in the fandom for so long? Even just plain anime and manga folks who literally have an option, various streaming site option, all legal, all supportive, all simulcast, is amazing.
The even animes, Toku fandoms maybe where anime was, decades ago in terms of access like that. We're just now starting to see like, okay, some of the biggest properties on the planet you can stream. Like, like finally. I mean, like Ultraman and Kamen Rider. Yeah, like these things aren't just like, oh, a couple of nerds in Japan like it. Like these are, phenomenons in an entire hemisphere. And yet if you ask someone, they would know. They would not. Most people would be like, I don't even know who that is. I mean, who cares, right? So the fact that we're only just now seeing it is just incredible. But thank goodness that we are. Like, finally, like we're starting to see cracks in that wall. So, and
yeah, it's basically it's the cracks that. I never thought I'd say this out loud. It's the cracks that make me hopeful. That's a sentence I said out loud. It's also. It's one of those things where when you were talking about you have Twitter mutuals who would see your threads and reactions, and which is basically your personal recommendation. Kind of how I was kind of explaining that because I wasn't excited or wasn't basically as into something when I was watching Gara with Tim, my best friend, he wasn't picking up on my energy either. So it's a lot of those things where the most successful I've found, even from a library professional's point of view, people can make lists more and more as librarians have this thing where like lists are starting to like, it's not helping a lot when just librarians just give you a whole list of stuff and it's completely, it's not personable. It's just an empty list of things. If there's like no excitement behind what you're talking about and no enthusiasm behind what you're talking about, it's not going to stick, at least not as well as you would like it to. And so when you were talking about people reacting to your threads and getting into it on their own and then flying off and like really, attaching themselves to something that you just happen to like make a thread about, that's pretty much on the same par as the most successes that I had of people getting into Toku, at least being excited and or just even curious, period, about Tokusatsu, is how excited and how enthusiastic I am when talking about something like this. Because if nothing else, people are picking up on what you're saying and how cool that you think it is.
Yeah, and I think that specifically now it feels like we're on the cusp of something great just because of that legal access. Like, I think, I heard something said about iTunes years ago and sort of the death of Napster and all these sorts of things. But something I heard that I thought was an interesting quote was that iTunes, and obviously this is a different scenario, but that iTunes proved that easy beats free. That that just because something is free doesn't necessarily mean that it is easy to access or painless. Like, people will pay a little or people will use official channels if it's easier than the illegitimate way. And for years and years and years, it's like, well, you got to get on BitTorrent, you got to download this other app, you got to, like there's
you got to know which link to click,
which one to click, which places to trust. You got to know which subs to use because everybody has their opinions. Like, God forbid, I was using TV Nihon for a while. I got so much flack for that when I was watching Force. People were like, how are you using TV Nihon? You've got to use, and people,
the snobbery.
There's all these invisible barriers that a new person doesn't know. But if you're just like, look, just go to this site, watch it legally right here, you're good. Like, that is like that. Even if their first few experiences are easy and positive like that, like just go on Crunchyroll and watch the first Ultraman that pops up. Like, as long as that's easy, if you can get those, if they can lay down roots, they'll be willing to jump over if they have to. Again, we keep praying that legal options become the norm. Like, I would one day like to just say, hey, Pat, let's just go stream the latest Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger off this website because it's free and legal, as opposed to, you know, the things that we have to do.
Cool.
So, like, I think as long as those early experiences are good, they'll be willing to stick around. But if you throw up, like, okay, here's the 10-step method to watching this thing, like, they're going to be like, I don't want a recipe. Like, I can just click and watch anime, you know? And, like, it's like when you compare it, when you say, okay, well, it's kind of like anime, but it's also kind of like your favorite, like, ridiculous Spider-Man comic. And if you start using all the few, like, data points that are similar, people are going to go, well, why don't I just watch or read those things because they're easier to get to? Why do I need to work hard for a thing that's like it? And, like, so the more these, like, streaming and physical media options become, that is where we really need to be putting our effort, I think, as a community. And we need to lift up those things because, like, it helps get more people into fandom. And, like, it's not necessarily our job, but we, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. We all benefit when these things do well. So
yeah. And we also all benefit by getting more people into fandom, because if fandom can't exist in a bubble, you want new people to get into this. You want people to get started getting into this. Being an elitist or kind of a jerk about it and judging them by how they get into it is not going to compel them to stay. Because they're going to, it's basically grab people more by honey instead of something like that. I don't know English idioms.
You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Yeah.
Is that what that is? That's a weird saying.
Just gonna come over here and get a scoop of honey. Oh my god, there are so many flies.
Bees everywhere.
I should have just had vinegar. There's so many disgusting flies in it.
Vinegar is a disinfectant. Anyway.
Yeah.
But you want to be able to kind of pad that positive experience. And unfortunately, that positive experience has to come from you. Yeah, it's if you are going to be talking about something that's really niche, you have to acknowledge first that there's a lot of niche things. There's just, even before niche was a thing, and in terms of media consumption, there's just going to be a lot of things in the world to know. And so you can't treat folks who come into your I guess let me put my librarian hat on. You can't treat people who come into the reference desk of a library being snobby that they don't know where something is.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes their first question is always not going to be the real question. And so it's one of those things where, like, you kind of have to do a recommender's version of a reference interview, in which case somebody comes up to you going, hey, I'm, like, super into Kamen Rider, or that GIF that you put up, it looks really cool and awesome. Like, where do I find this show? And first of all, it's like, oh, do you, like, well, what are you into? They answer, you tailor things to what they're doing, or you tailor things to what they have, what they have access to, what they're into in the first place, and you do so in a way that's not judgmental, just of what they don't know. And it's basically you creating a positive experience. So one, they may not come back to you in particular, but they at least feel comfortable doing so, and comfortable to go find it on their own. So all you're really doing when it comes to people, you know, hearing about Toku for the first time, or hearing about anything you're into for the first time, is make them unafraid to reach out on their own and create a positive experience for them. You're basically customer servicing them, because you're the one with the knowledge and responsibility for the most part, because they're approaching you. They trust you enough to approach you and to ask you about X, Y, and Z. In this case, tokusatsu. So create that positive experience for them as best as possible, and don't take it personally if they don't get into the particular thing that you're into.
Right.
That's probably the best thing you can do, just as a person who recommends these things, and something as niche as this is. Be as excited about, it's like, oh, hey, you didn't know about that? That's awesome. I can't wait to show this to you. Like, I think you'd be really into this, as opposed to, oh, you didn't know about that? Why didn't you know about that? It's stupid that you didn't know about that. Oh, that's a really bad fan sub. Don't read, like, or even the fact that, like, don't get into fan subs, like, that's just bad. I'm like, ask them first what they're accessible.
Right.
Like, how they're into things. Or necessarily in the case, but the whole overarching thing is just like, make this a positive experience for people who get into fandom, and because you want it to grow. It has to grow in order to stay profitable to the companies, to keep incentive for the companies to keep making these things, as well as fandom will die and interest will die if there's no new people getting into it. So yeah, the elitism should just be gone.
Fresh blood is so important. Even taking money out of the equation, fresh blood is so important and exciting. I mean, I'm reading One Piece right now, and I guess I should say that so many people comment all the time, and they tell me, like, because I'm reading it, I know nothing about One Piece going in. Like, I'm only in like the first quarter of the manga right now, and people were telling me, like, it's so much fun to see you live this for the first time, because it takes me back to when I lived it for the first time, or it made me go back and reread or rewatch just to experience it again and go, oh, I remember this, and oh, I remember where I was in my life when I saw this. And like that, for me, like people sharing their experiences with it, or they'll say, like, I mean, at the time there was, there were scanlations out with the different different names, so there's this like in joke with it, and like all these little things that I would never know as a first timer, but just like sort of publicly sharing my first time through something, like having people sort of congregate, like it energizes people. Like it's really fun to see people visit things that you love. And I know
that's exactly what happened with Kitty. That's why she was such a great addition to that podcast for TokuNet, just because she got to ask questions and be excited, and we got to go, oh my god, being able to see it from a new perspective's eyes and be re-energized to watch these things.
It's like it's the transition from being the kid that opens the present on Christmas morning to seeing someone open a present on Christmas morning, right? It's you're on the other side of it, and you're like, this is almost more exciting because I can't wait to see their face when they get to like certain point or certain like it builds up. So and the only thing that
That's a perfect way to put it.
The only thing I would add to what Paula said about, bringing people in or how we can do things differently, I think this is something that I also need to do sometimes, but I have had the most success with people who have approached me, because like my first, when someone says, hey, I'm wanting to get into Toku, your first thing is like, my first thought is like, open up the box of my faves and like, let me tell you about my Pokemans. Like, I just want to tell you about all my favorites because someone wants to talk with me. But I think maybe the first thing to do is take a step back and go, okay, what made you even ask? Or when you look at, if you Google Kamen Rider or Super Sentai and you look through the images or whatever, like what grabs you? Like what stands out?
What looks cool to you?
Like what looks neat? And I'll do what I can to help you get into that. Like, let's just go with where your interest, or if I say like, time travel or dinosaurs, or, if I throw out some thematics, like which of those sound interesting to you? And maybe I can help you find something there. And then once they're in, okay, now I can unload my faves on you. But I feel like we become that person that just is like, and we just try to like distill.
Just from a professional standpoint, you never want to do that to anybody who comes and asks you. I remember very clearly this one kid when I was working at a public library who was super sad that she couldn't find any superheroes that wasn't Wonder Woman or DC or Batgirl. She's like, I already read all those people. Like, I don't like them, and I don't like princesses. I want superheroes that are girls. Lo and behold, we had Power Rangers Samurai graphic novels for kids. And I was all like, let me show you something. And she loved it. Like, loved Yellow Ranger, loved Pink Ranger. The fact that they were heroes. And they were kicking ass. And as much as he's like, yeah, they're part of a team and it's great. And so it was really nice to be able to, again, you're tailoring something to their needs and what they approached you for. And you're not just spewing things that are completely foreign to them, in which case you're basically recommending things from your perspective rather than tailoring something to fit their perspective, so that they have an attachment to something that fits them. So it's one of those things where I guess, personally, us as recommenders or ambassadors to the stuff that we love have to understand that, like, after a while, it's not going to be, it's not about us. It's not about you. If somebody comes up to you and asks, like, hey, that thing looks really cool, I want to get to know that, because they're approaching you for that reason. It's like, I'm approaching you because I think you're cool. I think that what you're into is really cool. And so I don't want to take that away from them and just go like, hey, yeah, they're excited about it because you're excited about it, and so you want them to be part of that experience as opposed to just throwing at something and then walking away. You want to be able to incorporate them in that experience as opposed to just making them carry that experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. We want them to carry the torch. We don't want to just show them like our passion. We want them to build their own passion for it and keep going. Definitely.
Yeah. So be a little, like, I think to be a little bit more kinder to the people who approach you, even if they completely don't get it. So, and that's probably the best way you can be the ambassadorship of something so niche and so interesting as tokusatsu.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So what about how do we feel about the Toei, like what the big companies, your Toeis and Subarayas and Sabans, can do to reach more people? You know, we're
I think one of the things we have to keep in mind for them is that, at least from their perspective, it's a copyright dance. And us as consumers and us as fans of these things, we have to understand that that's where it comes down first, at least, because it's not only a copyright dance from just US perspective, but a copyright dance across nations with completely different attitudes about copyright. Japan in particular it's always gonna, it's one of those things where we as consumers have to kind of understand that just a little bit, and keep that in mind first and foremost, especially when you talk about history of Subaraya and what they had to go through for the past decade or so. And it's understandable that live action Japanese entertainment overall has a few more hurdles to jump before it becomes a little bit more accessible. Like, Korean drama became much more accessible to the US faster than Japanese drama that is outside of Japan, or outside of Hawaii, so to speak. There isn't like a large group of Japanese American communities,
right?
Like it's still there's still a few more like hurdles to jump, so to speak. So, like, that being said, Saban, before they relinquished their copyright to Hasbro for Power Rangers, and did an incredible thing by providing some of that copyright to Shout Factory. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with Saban's other tokusatsu series holdings, but it kind of teased up the possibility that Saban, as they're going through their relinquishment, Shout can also add Spielbahn, Mittelder, Scheider, all the B-Fighter, like, basically. But Saban was like hoarding that copyright for their own purposes so that they didn't develop it. And so, you know, it's one of those things where you have to kind of keep that in mind, that there's that copyright dance. Not so much struggle. I don't want to really call it a struggle because, you know, everything is. But it's a dance. There's some things that we have to keep that in mind. And the fact that Subaraya just, barely won their copyright fight with Chayo and all that stuff, that even TokuNet themselves was kind of caught in, because I guess I can talk about this now that I'm not working there anymore, but there was an article that I got that we were unable to get access to Subaraya officially from Japan's perspective, because we may have mentioned Chayo in our article, just explaining what happened, and explaining and attending an event that Chayo was holding in the US, but not so much encouraging it, but just saying like, hey, this happened and it's kind of weird, and I had to explain what happened. And we had to make that a patron exclusive article on Patreon instead, because Subaraya in Japan was so paranoid that they didn't give us access because we covered Chayo.
Jeez. Wow.
So it's a dance. And so, like, Subaraya could continue the new Ultraman show, RB. The fact that they just got their copyright fight back, and I'm sure things have changed now in terms of access this year, it's interesting, because we have R&B airing every week in YouTube to make it accessible, but but the fan subbing part has to be provided by fan subbers, by the caption submissions that YouTube makes. So, and RB is the first time they're not simulcasting with Crunchyroll, and Crunchyroll is what made Ultraman as accessible as it was at least in recent years. And I'm not sure whether or not there's any, not video on demand that's still on Super Aya's channel for RB. I can't remember off the top of my head if they still have it or if they take it down every week because it's still airing. Unlike all the Ultraman series on Crunchy, it's all still there. So it's one of those things where in my biggest wish list, Toei, Tsuburaya, Hasbro would make these things accessible on demand through various streaming services, and probably most of them through Crunchy, namely just because Crunchy already has a built-in audience for Japanese entertainment. That's for me personally, that might be a thing. And so Japanese networks should, and it's not just a Toei Tsuburaya production side responsibility, it's also a channel network, Japanese network side responsibility, because Japanese network should, just like NBC shows have like an agreement with Hulu to show things simulcast, and then we'll show an entire, like the whole series behind on, like, say another stream, like Netflix, that kind of thing, or NBC or CBS in this particular case are starting to have their own streaming sites just by their own channels for their own shows. So we don't really just have to look at the production side, the Toei Tsuburaya side of things. We also have to take a look at the network side of things as well. So I think, Japanese, what did I write down in my notes? Japanese networks should continue to utilize streaming in the same sense as anime streaming for their live action shows. Kind of the same way of what happened with Kamen Rider Amazon streaming on Amazon Prime. That makes sense. Amazon's was exclusive to Amazon Japan. And so it makes sense that we'll get it in Prime for the US. So J-dramas that were like exclusive to like a channel like HBO, like in my case Miss Sherlock, I would love to see it on HBO in the US. HBO exists in other places. And so Anisong Live is simulcast on Crunchyroll, as well as Ultraman for a time, which is incredible. And more Japanese shows, I believe, should be streamed on, they're being streamed now on Netflix and Amazon Prime as well, like Terrace House, Goodnight Call, those J-drama shows that's being streamed on Netflix now, as much as like anime shows are almost often Fuji Television network shows. So it's not just Toei and Tsuburaya that need to do some lifting in terms of that copyright dance to make these shows available. The studios and networks should expand their international streaming distribution as well, particularly TV Asahi, because that's where Superhero Time is aired.
Right.
And I believe Ultraman is not on TV Asahi. I believe that's TV Tokyo, which TV Tokyo in particular, that network, that channel, so to speak, specializes in anime in particular, which is why we get Ultraman simulcast on Crunchy as well. So Tsuburaya not only there's basically two companies that did heavy lifting when it came to those simulcasts. It's Tsuburaya themselves and TV Tokyo themselves that made it available for Crunchy to have them.
Oh, interesting.
So I think that that's something to also keep in mind as well. Like, it's not just the production companies that put these shows out. You have to think about it as network as well. And a lot of the folks who are advocating and doing coverage of these things, because, you know, the fandom is there. Like me, as when I was still working with TokuNet, anytime I get to interview like writers and voice actors and that's coming to anime show or coming to conventions like Anime Expo or I haven't been to Crunchyroll Expo, but the idea, a lot of writers for anime are also writers for tokusatsu or got their start writing also for tokusatsu. There's a lot of like cross sections there. The fact that you even bring up tokusatsu to any of those writers, they are still very surprised that there is a fan base for that here in the US. And I think the best way that people who are in anime and entertainment journalism, specifically for Japanese entertainment, the best thing that they can do is also kind of reach out and keep that in mind and continue to cover it so that is viewable and accessible and connecting with not only production companies, but also networks. And the best way to do that is to kind of support and watch things like Amazon's on the actual channel that they're meant to be streamed on.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that I believe that's like a super long explanation.
But it's good.
I mean,
I've been
it's very
thinking
thorough.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot.
Well, you had a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah, because I had to take a look to see like if basically if my theory was correct, whether or not why we got so much J-drama and Ultraman on Crunchy, but not say Netflix. It's because they were on two different networks. Mm-hmm. One was TV Tokyo, the other one was Fuji Television.
Isn't it the case that Netflix has a lot of the Kamen Rider stuff on Netflix Japan? Like, I think they have the license for it there. But, like, and then I guess if you have a VPN, you could probably access it.
Yeah, they do. So it's a network. I think it's not just the Toei thing or not just the Bandai thing. It's a network thing too.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's probably like the thorough nerdy. That's as nerdy as I get when it comes to copyright dancing.
Hey, do we want to hit that? I don't want to cut short, but I know that we are a little bit at the edge of our time here.
I talk
so
a lot. Sorry.
No. You covered it. I don't know what necessarily I could add besides agreeing with you on it. I had a comment that I was saving that it kind of got lost.
Sorry.
No. This is just like a stupid thing I wanted to say. Is that Grant, with your, I think you've confirmed that you're a digital influencer.
Oh God!
I believe they call me.
Positing.
I'm a taste maker, a trendsetter. Hashtag.
And bye.
A connoisseur. A connoisseur.
I don't want to watch that show. Sometimes I skip the latest Kamen Rider, but I definitely don't want to watch Connoisseur. It's not my jam.
Oh dear.
You know, assuming a level of interest and then how we recommend things to other people, that's no. You have to gauge what kind of show fits the watcher that you're recommending it to, and that's just
I think that's what the point. I think that's what the point of the show is. I think we have to stick it out and see where this plot of this is going. But I think we had a question that we should from our.
Yes, we do.
Our good friend.
So, from our good buddy, Behele Bebop, they asked us, oh no.
Well, I believe, if you were to recommend one show from each franchise, so Metal Hero, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, what show would you recommend from each franchise that would be helpful for a newbie? Which I tend to, when people ask me that, I was like, what would you recommend to a newbie? Just straight up. I kind of cop out and go, well, what are you into? Yeah. is kind of the thing. Because, you know, I really do believe, this is the one library thing I kind of hold on to dear life for. It's like every show it's watcher. There's absolutely no way to convert by force. If someone does not seem to benefit from enjoying something, you never know what experience may sully that piece of media that you force them to watch. So you always want to give folks the best experience possible when you're making suggestions. So tailor it to their likes. You never want to overload them. Give them what they're already interested in the best quality they can and in the best way that they themselves have access to. Access is also a really big thing, so just you have to be able to tailor it to what they access to. So people are always going to like what they like, and sometimes our zealousness in telling people more about tokusatsu, we forget that we love this thing because it's fun,
right? And
we need to bring that experience to our friends and our followers and colleagues whenever we're recommending anything. So a lot of the times, a lot of the stuff that I tend to recommend in terms of newbie shows is stuff that I do personally enjoy, but namely in that it's silly, it's fun, it's probably the going in cold, the best example of what I could give it. Because it's fun, and you have to understand that it starts from fun. So
I'm going to follow up with a betrayal of your recommendation on not forcing people to do it. Because I posit that my sister would really, really like the shows, and I think she does whenever I'm home and we're watching it, but she just doesn't set aside the time for it. So in a way, I'm forcing her with this. But she asked me what I wanted for my birthday, and I said, don't buy me anything. Instead, please just watch 10 episodes of the new series of Geo as it's coming out and discuss it with me every week. And she was like, are you kidding me with this? And I said, yes, that's what I want.
You gave her a quest for
I gave her
birthday.
a quest
I
for
got
her
it.
birthday.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, yeah, okay, I trust you on this. I was like, I think it'll be 12 episodes. She's like, yeah, it's fine. We'll do this. So,
give them the first arc. Also, what's a really good example of recommending things to somebody? The first episode may not always be the best episode to start them on.
Right. That is true.
Like, it's 10 episodes to heat up a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think, the best example for me, even though it's not tokusatsu related, was I remember I was getting into Fairy Tail, the anime, for the first time. And the first arc is kind of boring. And so I just started them from the second arc when I was basically just sitting and hanging out with Kitty. And it's like, hey, I just saw this anime. I thought it was really funny. You mind if I just started here? I knew I've watched the episode before, but I felt like if I just started where it's most exciting, because some of these shows, a lot of these shows are specifically made for kids. They do a lot of recapping. So especially in the beginning arcs anyway. So you get the spiel about what's going on, even if you start the mid second arc instead of first. There's another thing kind of keep in mind. So it might alleviate some of that, forcing them to slog through the how do we do this for 50 episodes?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, 50 episodes is a lot, so you also have to temper it that way.
So I'm just going to go ahead and put my cards on the table, and I'm coming out with recommendations. So here we go. So for the big three, that's what we'll focus on, at least the big three in my opinion, because that's, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman. Here we go. Mm-hmm. So... Ultraman, I'm gonna say go with Orb, just because I feel like Orb has it has just one. Even though I like G, I like a lot of the modern Ultras and a lot of the classic Ultras like 7 and so on. Mm-hmm. It has the modern sort of combo form gimmick, whereas G has 2 Ultras to keep track of. Orb at least just has one, so you just focus Guy is the Ultraman, and I will see what he is up to. And you, because of the merging Ultra Powers gimmick, you get to see a lot of classic designs, but you don't actually have to know who they are or what they do, because they are just part of making up what his suit looks like and what his powers are. And you don't have to know anything about Ultraman to get into that series, but you get to see a lot of old suits. And Ultra is one of my favorite things about Ultra is the I guess you could call it reusing, and it is, but using classic monster designs constantly. And always bringing them back. And they always bring in new ones too. But there's a sense of continuity in Ultra. Just every time you see Redmon come out, or you see King Joe, or whatever, you see these classic kaiju again and again and again. And with Orb, you also get to see classic Ultra suits, and that's, I think, really important to Ultra, because they do that more than just a team up episode. For Kamen Rider, I'm gonna recommend Kamen Rider Forze, because Kamen Rider Forze is the best. And because it exists in a space that you think most superhero fiction exists in. Kids getting powers, and they're in school.
Good pun.
Right? Yeah. It exists in this wonderful realm of kids going to school and they get powers, right? And it's got a very 50s Americana feel. So that's going to be very relatable for, most people in the US who are recommending these guys, that's the jock and that's the cheerleader. Those are very recognizable archetypes. And Forze has such heart. Forze's spirit is amazing. I mean, just, we all scream Uchukita when the time comes. You just can't. Gintaro's objective is to befriend everyone at school. And 50 episodes later, he has befriended, spoiler alert, he befriends everyone at school. And it's just so precious and wonderful. And also has really great fights and good monster designs and so on and so on and so on. And then for Super Sentai, I would recommend... Basically, this is the only one that's a variable. I would recommend, if you have seen a Power Rangers season, especially one that you're fond of from when you're a kid, watch that one. Just watch the corresponding Sentai. And if you have no experience with Power Rangers, just watch Zyuranger, because you probably know who the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are through osmosis. You know the suits. There's a witch or something in a garbage can. You've probably picked up a couple of the things that exist. And you're oh, these are they're high schoolers or something, right? It's Saved by the Bell with ninjas or whatever. You probably know just through the cultural osmosis, what Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is supposed to be. And Zyuranger is so not that. It is so just the opposite of that, ancient warrior dinosaur spirits fighting literally Satan and moon witches, and there's one where
it's a fairy tale.
Yeah, it's completely different than the Power Rangers material, and so you will just by knowing, like, well, I guess I kind of know what Power Rangers is, you'll be like, wow, Sentai is nothing like Power Rangers. It's something totally different. So I think the culture shock there alone is worth it. Those are mine.
Fantastic. A witch in a garbage can is something else I'm going to have to draw.
Yeah. She's
amazing.
She just lives in that garbage can for 10,000 years. I love time in Power Rangers. I love when Power Rangers writers put time, like spaces of time in their writing, because I don't think they understand like how long these time periods are. Like in Dino Charge, for example, Sledge is hanging out in orbit for 65 million years. It's like, look, I know that you're just like, oh, he was around when the dinosaurs were around, but I don't think you guys realize how long 65 million years is and what that would do to someone's psyche living in a confined space for 65. Like, just what kind of creature?
Eventually, cars went to sleep.
So, anyway.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So you all return with your either identical or lesser answers to that question. I'm throwing the gauntlet down.
Gee.
Oh, are you turning to me now? It's my turn?
Sure. Your Pat, go ahead. Grab the mic.
Well, usually for Sentai, it's really easy for me to recommend Deca Ranger or Shinkenger, actually. Yeah, it's the top three, at least for Sentai, is Deca, Shinkenger, and Zyuohger. Deca and Shin, well, all three, namely just because they have the most straightforward plot, and all of them are still kind of at that cusp of, quote, good special effects, but not so good special effects that it ruins everything else. It kind of has that balance, because I know there are some folks who are like, the special effects did not hold up, and I'm like, okay, stop. But I feel like Deca, Shinkenger, and Zyuohger kind of get that. Zyuohger is kind of back and forth on whether I could recommend it to new folks, namely just because people are saying that it's formulaic. But what I like about Zyuohger is that it is formulaic, but it's honestly the best example of formulaic. Like, you get the formula quick with those three Super Sentai shows, because they're really straightforward. There's no surprise in terms of, like, they're not outliers to their formula or their format, so to speak. They are probably the most straightforward Super Sentai shows. Best friends saving the world and inter-team conflict, but in the best way. And for Zyuohger in particular, was that because it came before Q Ranger, and Q Ranger is such a big outlier, being not only a big team, anniversary show, new production team and all that. Zyuohger was honestly the best that he can do within the formula and within its budget. They were able to reuse suits in probably the best way I've ever seen. So I tend to recommend one of those three depending on the person who asked me. For writer, I almost always recommend Forze, and I almost recommend Double, for the same exact reasons. They're probably the most straightforward insular plots, and still kind of like nice examples of what the format of this kind of show is into, or is good at. And same thing for Ultra, it's X, Orb, and Geed, rather. Namely for accessibility's sake, because they're the modern Ultras that is on Crunchy, so if somebody already has a Crunchy account, they're there. And same thing, straightforward plot, very insular, super accessible. And for me, the best one of the three of those for Ultra might be G, just because the plot itself is really, I don't want to say simplistic, because but it's an archetype that people are familiar with. It's a kid with a terrible dad who's just trying to find his identity outside of what people assume he is. And what I like about it, that is, even though you could watch it without going back to watch all the Zero movies and to explain who Belial is and stuff like that, it encourages you, it just enriches your experience to go back and actually watch the older Ultra. So it's a nice gateway, I feel. A little bit more than Orb would be. Because Geed's back, the movies that explain who Belial and Zero is and why there's such a big, like, villain-hero conflict between them is integral to that series without taking away from it if you didn't watch it. But it makes you curious. It only enriches your experience if you do go back and watch those older shows and see how that fits and why Billion reacts the way he does with various forms that Jeeds takes place in, which I think is really fun.
Yeah.
And that's, I almost always, of the 3 ultras that I tend to recommend to folks, Jeed is the one I recommend the most, for especially for new folks.
Jeed's so good.
Jeed's really good. I really liked it. At least for metal heroes, I tend to just say Gavon because it's one of those things when people think metal heroes, it's like, this is the definition.
Gavon.
This is the Merriam-Webster definition of what the hell metal heroes. It's Gavon. The sword turns into a laser. It's a lightsaber,
Gavon
but
is,
he's wearing
Gavon
metal
is
armor.
Too powerful.
He's sparkly. Like, it's amazing. And it's still very anybody who's into that classic 70s aesthetic, which older fans tend to be into, it's Gavon. And on the flip side of that, if you want super classy 70s, formulaic, Japanese, cheesy shows, you just want that, the cheesiest 70s superhero show you can get your hands on, it's Kaiketsu Zubat. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Especially for new folks, it's like, hey, I'm accepting that this is a weird 70s Japanese thing. I want to see weird Japanese thing that isn't Spider-Man. It's Zubat. I'm 100% always recommending Zubat because it just doesn't change. From beginning to end, Zubat episodes do not change. And I love it. And it was wrong for TokuNet to start doing a episode by episode watch along. We made a mistake. It was so formulaic and boring. We're like, why did we decide to do this? We were so excited from episode 1 through 10, and then we're like, this just repeats itself. What else can we talk about? Why did we do this? Because we got tired after episode 10, and then we're like, okay, we're skipping, and then we did one final episode. We watched the last episode, and we're like, so nothing changed. Just
No.
It's still the same thing. Okay, we made a mistake. But so that also helps. It's one of those, anything you can say also that has a funny story in your heart when you recommend to somebody new, because then they'll think of you and the funny thing and again, you're adding to that positive experience. Because now I can't get Zubat out of my head. I would recommend it to everyone because I was so annoyed having to podcast it every other week when it was just the exact same thing. I'm not podcasting, write about it. I'm like, I have no inspiration. This frustrated me, but that's why I love it.
I guess I'll just... Oh, wait, did you have a comment? Did I miss the comment writer one? Did you say one for that? Or...
Well, you commented of Trash Can Witch, so...
Oh, sorry. My bad. I couldn't not do it.
It's kind of amazing. I might have to commission you for a full... I'll give you one of those Power Rangers blank comic covers that you can just draw that exact thing.
Perfect. This is all from memory, so I'll take credit for it.
Yeah,
This is probably as good as it's going to get. Yeah. Oh my. Okay, I'm gonna tweet that later. Thanks.
Yes, please.
Oh,
What can I say?
that's perfect.
Once this episode goes out, definitely tweet that.
Oh yeah.
It's the cover art.
I guess just for a quick my take on the recommends, I'm gonna go with Kabuto as my first one just because it was so wild and trolly and weird and handsome. And then Kabuto for my rider recommendation. Build if you want to be serious. Want something a little more serious.
Get real, kid.
I really enjoyed what I've been seeing of Die Ranger. I'm still working on it.
Die Ranger's
So I'm
so
gonna
good.
stick with that one. Yeah. Or, you know what? I have a fondness for Jetman, even though we've only seen the first 2, and I would like to go back to that, so I'm gonna put those in, just because there's a seriousness to it that I'm enjoying, or that I was enjoying. Commitment to the camp, I guess. If we recall the eyeballs and the tea and just the alien invasion in episode 1, oh, wonderful. And then for Ultraman, I'm gonna go with G just because it's the one I've seen the most of, and what I've seen I've really liked. Also, Leto's precious.
Yes.
and I must be protected by him, not the other way around.
Ultra dads. Ultra dads are good. Give me more ultra
Yeah, ultra
dads, you
dads are good.
cowards.
Yeah, let's get to. I like that. Good dads and bad dads.
Yes.
In Toku's. Toku dads is something else.
I like space dads. They're my favorite kind of tokusatsu genre.
Oh boy, I bet you're really loving Build right now.
Yeah. That's very upsetting.
Yeah, I bet. But yeah, I think. I think this was really fun.
Oh, I'm glad.
I'm glad that we finally were able to get things together and do it. And
This is just like a pure reaction to the frustrations of scheduling and technical issues.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I could not stop talking.
Mm-hmm. We're taking advantage of the time that we have.
Exactly.
We'll never know if it won't happen again.
This was a miracle.
Live your life, guys. Fullest.
See you. We'll do this again in a year.
Record every pod like it's your
because it'll
last.
take us a year to. Oh jeez. Oh boy. Oh jeez.
But Paula, thanks so much for coming on. It was really great to have you, and
thanks for
definitely
inviting me.
thank you for making, what apparently were wild decisions late at night to found important things for the community, and for just being.
I did it for my friends.
You did it. You did it for all of us in the end, and
All of us.
the real TokuNet was the friends we made along the way. I think.
And good night.
But thank you for being on, for doing what you do, and for sharing your knowledge with us. It was great.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I would say any time. We've had too many issues, so it was great having you. But I don't know if I can say we'll have you back anytime because I just.
Hey, if it's by request, let me know.
We put all this work setting it up. We should do it at least one more time.
I know. I am now a Windows 10 privacy expert because of this.
Super appreciate it. Thanks for sticking it with us. And then maybe we'll come back again.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks for tuning in to the Super Senpai Podcast. We'll notice you again next time.
Super Senpai Podcast.